If you watched my last video trying to figure out whether your lavender was dead or just dormant, and by now you have unfortunately realized the conclusion is that yes, it is dead, you're probably wondering how did this happen? Because lavender looks like one of those easy, carefree plants, but it actually has one major non negotiable, which I'll address. And the last reason on my list is one that has gotten me personally, and it may be the most surefire way to end up with a dead lavender plant by spring. The number one reason your lavender died is that its roots stayed too wet. This is the most common reason lavender dies is due to poor drainage. Lavender does not like wet feet. This is a non-negotiable, and you do not necessarily have to be standing there overwatering it for this to happen. If it's planted in heavy clay soil, a low spot in your yard, near a sprinkler, close to a downspout, or under thick moisture-holding mulch, the roots may be staying wet much longer than you realize. That becomes an even bigger problem in winter, when the soil stays cold and damp for long periods of time. Newly planted lavender does need regular watering while it's getting established, but once established, it wants the soil dry between waterings. The second reason your lavender died is that it did not get enough sun or airflow. Lavender needs full sun, ideally at least 6 hours a day. So when it's planted in too much shade, the plant does not just bloom less. The soil and foliage also stay damp longer, which can increase the chance of decline and root rot. The same thing can happen when lavender is crowded in with plants that need more water or when there's not enough airflow around it. This is not a plant to tuck into a damp, crowded garden bed with plants you water constantly. The third reason is you bought the wrong type of lavender. Now, don't get me wrong, there are so many gorgeous types of lavender out there, but just because there are a lot of different types does not mean that one's right for your zone. And garden centers often sell these gorgeous lavender varieties, but sometimes they're not going to survive the winter where you live. So you really need to pay attention to that tag and its growing zone and winter hardiness. For example, Spanish lavender, the ones with those pretty little flag-like blooms on top, beautiful, but is much less cold hardy than English lavender. So if you live in a colder climate, English lavender or a hardy lavender variety is usually a better choice if you want it to come back year after year. So just make sure if you're planting it as a perennial to check the tag and make sure that particular variety is hardy in your zone. And now for the one that has gotten me personally, maybe you too, growing lavender in a pot and leaving it outside all winter. I know people are going to say, mine has been grown in a pot for years and it comes back every spring. And honestly, that is awesome. And I'm jealous. But I have never had reliable success keeping lavender alive in a pot all year. And I do not personally know many gardeners in my area, I'm in zone 6B, who have had success either. And here's why. A lavender plant in the ground has the surrounding soil helping to insulate its roots. But in a pot, those roots are much more exposed to freezing temperatures, thawing, and drastic temperature swings. Then add drainage problems. A pot can stay wet during winter rain, snow, and freeze-thaw cycles, and lavender roots absolutely do not want to sit in cold, soggy soil. So for me, lavender in a pot is either going to be a seasonal plant or it needs some kind of special winter protection. Leaving it outside all winter and hoping for the best is usually not a gamble I win. So if your plant didn't survive, here's what you could do next time to help it survive. You want to plant a cold, hardy variety in the sunniest, driest part of your yard. Choose a spot with excellent drainage. If your soil is heavy or holds water, consider planting lavender slightly raised, on a berm, or in a raised bed, or even amending the soil. Keep moisture holding mulch away from the crown of the plant. Don't fertilize, and wait until spring once you see new growth before doing any major pruning. And if you're growing lavender in a pot, either plan to protect it over winter or enjoy it for the season without assuming it will return. Lavender is not impossible to grow, but is not forgiving when it comes to wet soil, the wrong variety, or an exposed winter container. Once you treat it like the dry-loving Mediterranean herb that it is, you can get a much better chance of it coming back next year.